Okay, this is the second of two 1 hour sessions here on Saturday, November 16th. And this is, of course, the third month of a year-long program here in Living Resilience called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And this is the second of two. This is the third Saturday in November 2024. And for those folks who are watching the recordings only, we miss you. We would love to see you in person. And if that can ever happen, please come join us. Um, in the meantime, you may have heard my suggestions and my requests from last time to please reach out to contribute your own practices, your own insights, and perhaps your own interest level in getting together with other folks in between these Saturdays. These two 1 hour sessions every other Saturday is just not enough. It's not much. And it's really built to kind of nudge us toward making the connections that we're personally needing. And it's different for each of us. And so if you need a single buddy about a particular subject matter or a particular kind of practice that you'd like to do with someone else, that's a place where you can reach out to ask other people to participate with you. And that place I'm talking about is the Living Resilience online community space, which um, I'm pretty sure everybody who's on this screen one way or another knows about that. But if not, I will be sure to put it in the show notes of every one of these recordings. So you'll be able to get yourself there to find the materials, the course materials section, the videos and articles and so on that have been curated for each of the month's sessions. So that's kind of the housekeeping to make sure that people are aware of the various things that are available. I am formulating a couple of things. One is the somatic practices. I'd like to just orient you to my own experience, and please check it against your own. I don't mean to say yours needs to be like mine, but I find that in these days of the 24/7 fire hose to the face of too much content all the time, it gets really easy to start to just filter out or numb out to really getting the value that's possible out of various pieces of content on their own if there was just some way to filter. And so um, I'd very much like to suggest that you give each month's content a opportunity to blossom for you. There's some beauty involved. We try and keep a bit of what I call the muse available through primarily through one of Richard Lowenthal's uh, buddies on Medium. Um, I just
Okay.
find his choice in pieces of art and quotations and poetry and then his own words, it's helpful to have just that kind of artistic flow and blend. It helps me to let my focus relax a bit and be inspired in a different way. So each month you'll find pieces that are meant to be muse for us. There's also single.
You mean David Price?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who did I say?
No, well, you didn't say his name. You mean David Price?
I didn't say his name. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Little details. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we also include at least one sing-along song, and sometimes just a song that's so beautiful, but not necessarily for singing along.
Hmm.
And so those elements are awaiting you. It's not all just intense. In fact, we've gotten it down to usually each month there'll be but one or at most two articles or elements that are called What We Are Up Against. and they're meant to not be pumped out doom scrolling at scale. It's meant to be one precision offering that is curated to be a significant shift. And unfortunately, often it's not a particularly optimistic shift in some element or another of one of the meta crises or poly crises that we are facing. So you could also look for that in the course material. And that is provided not only for your, information, and perhaps it'll be new to you and maybe not, but it's also meant to be kind of fodder for the process work that is implied each month. There'll be a process focus, or I don't know if this language will be familiar to you, but one of the bodies that we have within us to be able to have practices or distinctions about that body and how to bring ourselves back to center in that body. And I'm just going to say a little bit more about that for anybody. Could I see the hands of people who are pretty clear on what I'm saying about these various bodies within our body? Is that, and if it's not, just leave your hand down and really, everybody, wow, great. So that's lovely. So in the first month, we did a bit of sense making, which would be the mental body. Um, and I'm rearranging that because I think I completely failed in my intention to put in something brand new into the very first section of this year-long program. So back in September when we started, uh, I put in quite a chunk about creating our own new story for ourselves,
Okay.
which there's been a tremendous amount of that kind of input from various thought leaders and so on in these past few years. Like what we need is a new story to be able to expand our capacity personally to find meaning in these existentially threatening times. So again, I just, if it's of interest to you, I'm finding that the response was pretty flat. So I can understand that I made a mistake, and I will be shifting that with some other quite brilliant material, if I do say so myself, not from me, but from someone I bumped into recently that is, I think, going to be an exquisite addition. I will be offering that to you all in one of the soon to come months, if not next month. Um, and thank you for your patience with this being a very alive creation. I'm shifting this, like I shifted this month tremendously to accommodate the obvious impact of this presidential election in the US. It's a very difficult thing to just ignore. So, so this is as I mentioned before, the second of two 1 hour sessions here on November 16th. And this is meant to be the more a fit with the overall context of this course, Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And also, with the context of this work of living resilience, which the short version is this is inner work of collapse. And so this is meant to be session by session, a deepening of our experience of ourselves sitting with others to expand our capacity to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. And if I do say so myself, last session was a perfect example of what that can look like in real time. And truthfully, I experienced that very much last week as well for an entirely different reason, but it was just so alive in the space that we literally got to experience ourselves and each other, expanding our capacity to hold space for one another, to generate a coherence, a shared coherence in the space, even though we're online and thousands of miles from one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Mm.
And so this time I I really would like to ask us to check in briefly this time. And there's one thing that we are actually carrying a small thread of. You may not realize it yet, but is to be able to have a way of checking in with one another that involves a shorthand about each of those bodies that I'm talking about, the physical body, the mental body, the feelings or emotions body, the energy body, and the uh, soul or archetypal body. It's just fine if any of that, for those of you watching the recording or anybody on the screen right now, if any of that just doesn't quite click, what the heck did he just say? It's okay. We have barely scratched into starting the basic practices that we might share about the feeling body. We did that last month in October. We just did one brief exercise, one brief practice. There will be more offered to you in a way that you'll be able to just pick and choose and then perhaps find a buddy and do some practices. They're all quite easy to jump into. So those are previews of coming attractions. One more coming attraction is that we are going to be going into the mental body, or what could be called sense making at scale, which of course, well, I don't know, of course, but it seems pretty obvious that we could all use some help in making sense of these extraordinarily insane times that we're in. The level of cognitive dissonance it just literally fries my brain. We are at an existential level of cognitive dissonance, individually and collectively, that is really not kidding around. The amount of ambient stress or depression alone that's going on, or suicide rates and other stressors, other measures of stressors going on. Um, it's hard to overstate. So we're going to be doing some diving into that in next month and the coming couple of months. So again, I'm slowing down my own pace, and I invite you to do the same. I noticed that I haven't really taken a full breath since we started this session. So that means I'm more in my head. I'm not particularly aware of my body. And so in slowing down and in deepening my breath, I'm more aware of my body. I'm very aware right now how deeply into my body the breath is going, and that makes a tremendous difference. And as is often the case, many of you have seen or know this about me, is that I've been cueing myself like this for a long time, and I am now blessed with a kind of an ability to a track to go on in my own system that can access what I often call the implicit, the my implicit system or implicit senses in my own body. And I almost always do this when I'm describing it. Goes from about the base of the top of my neck to my perineum, down through the center of my body. And and this, I would assert, is where the research psychiatrist Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who's written massive tomes about the human system and especially our brains and how they're hemispheric. And unfortunately, we have come to a time in human history when The hemisphere that should be running the show is not. And the one that should be in service to that other hemisphere is now running the show. And what happens, what we get when that happens is the world we're now living in. So there's more on that later. My strong suggestion is there are literally 10,000 videos with Ian McGilchrist giving you the scoop in a relatively short amount of time in an interview about what I've just hinted at. So I'd like to ask each of us to check in with a little bit of uh, what's been happening since we saw you last. I mean, literally just a few, 30 seconds. This ideally, we're going to do this in about 2 minutes each. It's a brief check-in with just little snapshots of particularly what I'd like to ask you about is in whatever area of your life has been most present for you, what are some of the aspects of this thing we explored together last hour that I was calling the long dark, this time of collapse, this time of immense, um, inarguable elements of collapse going on. What have you noticed in your system? Have there been emotions or feelings that have been particularly strong for you? If you could mention that, or if you've had particularly difficult time sense making, and that seems to be more prominent in your experience in this past week or so. Perhaps you could check in with a little bit about that. And also, if you've had physical, instead, part of your physical body is something that you'd like to mention in your check-in, and it's about a particular thing. I could speak a bit about my own stress level and my own physical symptoms in this past week were a bit more pronounced than they've been in a long time. I might check in with that briefly. In fact, I'm gonna just give you my check-in. I'm gonna do my best to model it. I'm gonna stop talking about it, and I'm now gonna give you my check-in in a way as close as I can to coming in at about 2 minutes and giving you a sense of at least one of my bodies and what sort of feelings or physical sensations or sense making has been most present for me. Any questions before I go? Anything that's not clear what I'm doing? Okay, great. All right. Well, again, I'm Dean Walker. I live in Southern Oregon. I am the primary space holder for these things that we get together for to do. And it has been an extraordinary week for me. It's been an extraordinary few months for me, but this past week has been some of the largest scale um, elements of beauty and extraordinary connection and relationship that I've ever had, mixed with some of the greatest stressors that I've had in terms of aspects of finance and logistics in my life. Like I hope I never have another wave like this of these particular stressors. And I often like to talk about percentages of, for instance, the anxiety or the stress level that I was feeling about those financial things that I was just sharing. So I would say of my capacity that I can accommodate that kind of thing, I say I'm pretty close to about 80%, 80, maybe 90% in moments in this past week of my capacity to hold that level of stress about things involving finance and logistics in my life. So that's it for my check-in. There you've got a little brief snapshot of one of my bodies, one of the core elements of how I experience the world, a little bit about the rest of it. Um, any question about what I just did or what it, what I'm asking us to do in a moment? Okay. So is there anybody else who would like to check in as close to that timing and that brevity is possible, and it's okay if you go a little long, whatever. All right, Melissa,
Uh,
thank you.
sure. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you, Dean. Yeah, my name's Melissa Harmon. I'm in Alameda, California. Um, I've been having a lot of intellectual or, mental body experiences of trying to figure out certain things that, I'm getting older and I want to retire, but there's decisions I have to make, and, you know, sometimes those aren't fair to other people. And so I don't like that. But in other words, just I go back and forth between like trying to work something out intellectually or logically. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all because I need to do that. But then I want to have the feelings too. And it's very hard to have them at the same time. I mean, when so I could go on, but that's kind of happening. I try to make time for when I can just feel or walk around and get out of town for one day at least, or get out someplace that is in nature. So, and that's the feeling body part. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to come to these sanity meetings because I need some. And this is a place where we can talk about, the extent to which this thing is happening, our world. So I guess that's enough. Should I pick somebody or
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you, Melissa.
okay? How about Allison?
Okay, so I mean I'm new here, so you don't have a point of reference for my week, but so last week I drove from New York to California to escape my climate disaster. And so I had a lot of time on the road to try and process not only my personal experience, but the national tragedy that we're going through simultaneously. So it hits everything. It hits me intellectually, it hits me emotionally, it hit me physically, it hit me financially. I mean, like all quadrants were activated. And I came to a very strange conclusion. I mean, maybe this is where we're supposed to get. But the only thing I'm getting is surrender. You can't fix climate change, and we can't fix the political scenario that we've just launched into. But I think at least we should try and enjoy what we can because things are coming at us so fast that I fear we don't want to look back and think I should have been more present, or I should have done what I wanted to do, or I mean this is like I studied philosophy in college, and when they said existential, I didn't understand it, but I was too young. I don't think you can understand existential when you're 20, but when you're 70, I think you can understand it. So this is an existential moment, and we are, called upon to be with each other and communicate and support each other. And I don't think there's anything else to do. I mean, I don't know if I sound like a Pollyanna, but um, and it could just be my trauma that's talking. So, but we can't fix this. So this is what what's her name? Catherine Ingram calls, you know, deep adaptation. Just going to have to adapt. So that's my check-in.
Right on. Thank you, Allison. And would you choose somebody else off the screen who has not yet checked in?
Sure. Richard?
Okay. Hi, I'm Richard in Central Texas, and I've been writing a lot about the election and environmental issues and collapse for quite a while. And this election, I mean, I was kind of anticipating that Trump could win, but nothing could really prepare me for the sledgehammer blow of on the feeling level of him winning again. I mean, I really was devastated, and I still am. I'm just almost numb. I mean, in the earlier group, we didn't talk about any readings, but I haven't been doing any, and I have not been doing any readings because I'm so wiped out and kind of freaked out. I just can't focus enough to read. I can write, but I can't read. I mean, I've been noticing that I can read short things, but nothing like a long book or anything like that. So, anyway, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, emotionally, I'm experiencing like a huge range of emotions. Mainly, I say mainly grief and fear at this point, about what Trump and his henchmen are planning, and I've been following what they're planning. It's pretty awful. So, and I'm writing about it too, but it doesn't really help. I mean, the feeling level is just so intense and overwhelming. I'm just struggling with it. Um, I think that's about it for me. I'll mention one other thing. I'm writing a piece related to all this right now, and it's called "The Nightmare Before Thanksgiving." Yeah. So that's it for me.
Richard, thank you. Would you choose someone else who has not yet checked in?
Sure. Janet, you want to go?
Um, sure.
Yeah.
Um, how am I? Um, I'm getting more and more conscious of the need to pay attention to things in the moment, and not sort of rush by important things. I'll give you an example of that. I have a horse who's got fairly significant lameness, which may be quite serious or may be moderately serious. And normally, how I would deal with something like this is um, I take care of her, but I'm rushing. Like my brain is on the medical, soak her foot, bandage it. And I'm reminding myself to connect with her, like to stand with her and sort of be present with her in her pain. Um, and it's a, and I think, Allison, it goes back to what you're saying is all bets are off the table. Um, 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 I agree that there's not really anything we can do, but our mind will keep struggling to find something to do. But in fact, there isn't really anything you can do. And anyway, so I'm looking to find ways to have peace and connection in the moment. Um, so, like you say, I'm not going to look back and kind of go, oh, gee, I wish I'd spent more time with her, or with my dog who's not well, or with that tree, or, or my neighbor that's not my most favorite person. Um, anyway, I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm trying, I think, to um, reorient myself um, to what's here. Um, anyway, I probably sound as scrambled as I feel. So,
I don't think you're sounding scrambled at all, but that's just me.
Oh,
Janet, thank you. And would you choose? I think it's just
Well,
Mike.
I'm the last
Yeah.
Mike,
one.
It's Mike.
Mike, yep.
Okay. Well, um, I guess we're all feeling a bit uh, disoriented with the events that have happened. It really feels like it hits home about islands of sanity in an insane world. Uh, what uh, and I guess I share the kind of despair and grief that everybody else feels these days. But I've been trying to find a place of balance, a place where can have something actually to hold on to. And um, well, what seems to come to me is just that we are seeing more and more of these kinds of great system failures with things that have been happening all around us.
Hmm.
And uh, one thing that has given me a little glimmer of hope recently is finding a website online, this organization called the Foundation for Intentional Community. And so there are these people, and I wasn't really aware of how large a group it is. People are starting to link together with each other in physical proximity to say all these things are happening, all these things are failing, and we have to find ways to connect with each other and support each other. And so I have found a group locally that I've been able to link up with. And so I feel like this is sort of a part and parcel of what I need to do, because it's not just dealing with the inner work of collapse, but there's outer work too that um, to find the people who are trying to uh, link up together in the same place, the same physical space, and say, we have to create a community of support. And what does that mean? Because we haven't lived like that in a long time. Our systems have always kept us pretty isolated. And so just talking to people online, it can help, but it really needs to find the people who are right there and get with them. And so that's uh, I think there's something happening there, because it seems to me that more and more people are starting to do this simply because uh, it's becoming necessary. There's no other way to get through than with each other. So that's all I'm thinking about right now. I'll leave it at that.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. And Mike, it's you're reminding me that this chat space that I was telling y'all about, I don't know how real that is for anybody yet. I don't know. Is there anybody who's knows exactly what I'm talking about? You've been there, you read stuff. Yeah. So I'm going to share screen for just a moment to give you a sense of where it is, and hopefully that'll give you some impetus to share there. And why I'm bringing it up right now, Mike, is I so appreciate you sharing that remarkable resource. I am very interested in intentional community. That's been something very alive for me for most of my life, and That's brand new to me. I hadn't heard of that foundation or that group before. So if y'all are inclined for whatever reason, and I'm just happen to be picking on Mike right now for that incredible, resource, is it might be a
I'll
place
post the
to,
link.
sorry, to
I'll
post the link.
post the
You're
link.
right. And posting the link perhaps here in the chat for folks who are on the screen right now, but posting the link in that chat area would be fantastic. So let me just show you where that lives, that chat space. Okay, you should now be seeing the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course materials space. And please, put something in the chat to me about right here if you would like to connect up and find out how to get there. What is this space? If it lives for you like that, let me help you out if I can. And then notice course material is underlined up toward the top there. And go over to the right a couple of spots, and you'll see Islands chat space.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. That's where you can leave messages for people who are just watching the recordings, or if you have a special resource like Mike has just been talking about, this is a wonderful place to post it. I would really appreciate it because, yeah, I mean, that's especially for that resource. Wow. So that's a little tour of the stuff that's available at the menu level of Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, which, if you look to the left-hand side of what's on your screen, you'll see that it's under the courses menu on that long list on the left. I hope that's making sense. Anybody
Mhm.
got a question about logistics on that? No, seems like you got
Nope.
it. Okay, we're back. All right. Yeah. So thank you all for um, this is one of the first real practice sessions of kind of an adapted version of a check-in. And my intention or my hope is that over time, as each time we get together in these Saturday sessions, that we uh, take an opportunity to check in about which bodies, which aspects of our core selves have been most active, most activated in the past time since we saw each other last. And we can speak in a shorthand that gives a remarkable amount of information in a short period of time about how we're doing. And with that as a foundation, we can go into whatever the conversation is that brings us together. Here it's fairly obvious, it's built in,
Oh.
but I'm thinking that there may be some times when you get together with a buddy to do some feeling body practice. I noticed for myself, it's very foreign. How I checked in earlier when I was telling you about a lot of stress in my body about finances and logistics, that is really rare. I've had that level of stress in my body about those issues maybe, maybe two other times in my entire life. So I don't know much about that area. So if I could call on somebody offline, if I needed more time than we have on these brief calls, if I could give Janet a call and say, or send you an email and say, Janet, do you have a few moments to hold space for me about that stuff I was checking in with, that stress about the financial stuff? Because it's still hanging in. And truthfully, right now, this second, and I'm not doing a demo about something, I actually feel some fear, substantial amount of fear, and a substantial amount of rigidity across my chest, and very shallow breathing. Just as I'm focusing on this and I'm trying to share this with y'all as an example, it's not an example, it's for reals. So this tension is very real. And it would be very helpful for me if I knew that I could contact someone from this circle and say, I've got some anxiety, some tension that is just not easing up. And I would appreciate it if you have the space for it, if you could hold space for me for maybe a half hour call. I could sure use some way, some space in which I could start to really explore that because I feel like I've got a big blind spot here. And again, I'm not just telling you about an example of how this could be. This is for real right now. And I'm just
I'm
pausing.
available.
I'm sorry.
And I'm available.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Sure.
So it's great that you're offering me that, and I'm blessed with a number of resources, people who in circles that big and small that I can do that. And I'll give it some thought before we hang up and perhaps put the invitation out and actually connect up here. And I hope you'll consider doing the same thing. It's okay to take a few moments to do that in these sessions, and or you can do that directly communicating with one another in the chat. Notice how you have the choice of communicating with one person directly in the chat, one person at a time if you so choose, or you can put a chat out to everybody.
Right, right. Yeah.
So thank you all for just hearing that, and I hope you will take advantage of it. And thank you all for listening and really receiving me sincerely in this. I notice that I'm afraid. I'm afraid at the level of being financially compromised at a level I would never have dreamt of. So I've got some pretty big tangled elements to sort out and work out in this next week. I'll have quite a bit to share next time, and I'll I'll pray at this moment that it's going to be um, good news. So,
Thanks, Dean.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know that I would be sharing that, and it's very important. Perhaps I could just share one brief thing about that, how it fits in this picture. It's been very real for me for a few years that, especially actually in the past 2 years in particular, since artificial intelligence has been so much more prominent in our world and in our news and so on, uh, the amount of financial and economic elements that are entwined with artificial intelligence for a number of reasons, and we'll go into it. But I've seen that some of the news is universally pretty good. There's some good news that's possible in the AI environment, good things that could happen. That could be good news for a lot of people at all levels of the economic spectrum. Primarily, I am not very encouraged. Mostly, I'm seeing the perverse incentives that the thought leader Daniel Schmachtenberger has made abundantly clear in the past few years. If is there anybody who doesn't know the name Daniel Schmachtenberger? Yeah. I'm happy to be sharing some elements from Daniel uh, in the coming weeks and months of this course. There will be more and more Daniel Schmachtenberger stuff, especially in the sense making arena. I'll just tell you, he's brilliant, and he's made it abundantly clear what some of the elements that have literally come to be taking us down. Some things that are assuring our self-destruction in these extremely troubled times. In any case, um, I really do appreciate all of you holding space for me, briefly sharing as an example of what I'm inviting for us all to do. And the financial and economic pressures promise to be coming on soon. If they're not already affecting y'all, perhaps we could share that with each other in future meetings. Um, and it promises to be intense, ranging from personal financial well-being or not, which of course matters very much to all of us. And it also extends to the complete annihilation of all climate change efforts around the world are going to be snuffed out if they haven't already been. And this is without Donald Trump in the conversation at all, or Project 2025.
Hmm.
There is now a zero-sum game at a global level of all the mega corporations that are involved with the development of AI, that there is one dominant position that everybody is racing for. There will only be one winner. And so it is the ultimate in zero sum or all or nothing competition in this AI race. And every inch of that race costs billions of dollars and takes massive amounts of electricity
Hmm.
and other resources, of course, but primarily energy.
Yeah.
And so what that's going to do is completely annihilate all the targets of Paris from 2015 and so on, 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial conditions and so on. That's done. That's gone. Just so you know, I mean, if you haven't seen it in the headlines, it's unlikely we will for quite some time to come. But it is already happening that those targets are as good as useless because of the race between those oligarchs. What has been recently approved here in the USA is many, many billions of dollars to create new um, energy power plants, primarily fossil fuel driven power plants, but also small nuclear plants and so on. And those are being built exclusively for the use of these AI corporations and their pursuit of this ultimate dominance. So that's an example right there, which I wasn't expecting to share, but that's an example of this, what we are up against, elements or articles that will be included one or so each month. Um, I found that to be just breathtaking. That entire conversation and all the activism and all the cop pretense that has done nothing but increase our emissions for 30 years. This is the death knell of any sort of mitigation efforts anywhere on the planet at scale. Richard,
Yeah, I was just gonna add to what you were just saying. I've been researching this some myself, and it's, I don't think most people are aware. It's astounding. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of energy and also the amount of water that a lot of these things take, like chip manufacturing. They're building some big chip manufacturing plants near me here in Central Texas, and these places use an incredible amount of it, both energy and water.
yeah.
And we're in a prolonged drought here, and yet they're building these factories that use up an immense amount of water. And guess what? That's water is not going to be available for most other purposes. It's really getting very crazy, and just supporting what you said, it's really, and we've never met any of our goals in reducing emissions. I mean, every year we talk about it, but every year the emissions go up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, completely out of control. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
Hmm.
crypto that does the same thing. It takes tons of
Yeah,
energy.
exactly. That too. Yeah, yeah. Right. And they all, I mean, the thing in common is they all are using an incredible amount of computing power, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So
Insane.
if I may, I'd just like to invite us all. I notice I'm already in the mode, just in introducing what I introduced, and then in this follow-up conversation, this thread, I'm already in my body. I can feel I'm in the mode that I get in to kind of survive the conversation. I'm closing down, really
Hmm.
feeling anything that I'm talking about. This is just me. So just check in with your own body and look into your feeling body, looking into your sense-making body. There are times when I get a piece of information like this, and in my sense-making capacity, if I really let it in, that what we're talking about is the end of all activism on this planet
Hmm.
with regard to anything environmental. That's what is actually being threatened in the sentences that are coming out of my mouth. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to share with you how I'm armoring myself. I'm self-aware enough to know I'm doing this. I'm doing it because if I was really feeling it, I would probably first shed a couple of tears because that just seems to be the opening of the door inside of myself. But what I know is there is a white hot rage.
Yep.
In some
Yeah.
circles I sit in, that could be called sacred rage. It certainly is how it shows up since I've had access to this feeling in my body since I was a teenager, since I first became collapse acceptant, that we're actually doing this. This is actually happening. And
Yep.
and activism, we're actually watching the death of activism in our lifetimes and actually maybe fully within the next year. I don't know that for sure. But even that being a possibility in the conversation is enough to activate that rage in myself. I feel like I've got a pretty good ability to connect with that, to process it, to titrate it, as you know, to just loop back to the book Climate Cure conversation that we had an hour ago. I know I can titrate this. I can bite off small chunks of this at a time and process it and feel it in my experience, small bits at a time. What I'd like to now just briefly reconnect with is something that I've been in. I hope I haven't been annoying, but I've been repetitive about this since our very first session in September. Is I would request that you consider, if you have not ever been a journal person, to
Hmm.
start keeping a journal. If you are already a writer, which a few of us are on this screen, and wow, God bless you. I know for me, I'm a reluctant writer. I've written one book and it took everything I had, and I'm not a natural writer. I write fairly often. I'm now as regular as I've ever been about being a journal writer. I would strongly suggest you do that. And if you need some prompts, I've given a couple. You may or may not have seen the videos from the course material that in which I've suggested it, one in October in particular, where I suggested, look, if you got nowhere else to start, go with The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way is a book from Julia Cameron from, I think, the 80s or 70s.
Hmm.
That's just an exquisite, very basic, very easy to understand. It's not esoteric way of doing journaling that is particularly not traumatic. It's not re-traumatizing. It's basically inviting us to be in touch with our own inner creativity. So if you have no other, like, nothing to relate to about journaling, get the book Journaling, excuse me, the book The Artist's Way from Julia Cameron. It's a sweet, potent, easy to do journaling practice. And I've lost the thread now that I've gotten on to get you there. I think that the bottom line of this sharing and this moment of feeling together about the possible end of activism as we've known it within a very short number of months or years, it's something that I would strongly recommend writing down and feeling deeply into, and perhaps sharing, having deep conversations with other co-circle mates. It may or may not move you that way. This death of activism, given who I have been, but more importantly, who I have supported very actively in my life, the people I deeply honor for their work, their incredible work as activists. There's some stuff to process there for me. Thank you for hearing that. We're very close to the end of our time together.
Dean,
Yeah.
can I do a question about that?
Of course.
When you say the end of activism, are you saying the end of activism that will be effective? Because I'm thinking that there'll still be organizations struggling. So do I have that right, that there's so much power now going to shut it down?
Yeah.
That okay.
No.
And
I'm nodding that I'm hearing you, and I'm happy to. I'm just waiting for your pause so I can respond.
yes, go ahead.
I never ever want to stop anyone from their authentic expression of what matters most to them. Ever.
Mhm.
I honor that. That's really why I'm doing this work, is to inspire in each of us, finding what matters most to us and living that at full volume. Whatever is important to you. If it's playing piano, if it's being an activist, if it's blowing up dams, whatever your thing is, I invite that. Because I especially invite that because what we're doing is finding our center and then coming from that center. And I don't know how to do it any better than that. So please don't hear that I want to discourage anyone. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. I would be thrilled if anybody on this screen, next time we get together, or if anything you share in that chat space, can bring me any other information to turn, talk me down here. I am not happy about delivering this news. And any other opinions, any other tracks, anything you'd like to share that's inspiring to you, please. That is the whole nature of why we're singing along and why we're reading about the muse and why we get together to generate coherence together. Because if we didn't have those things to connect so beautifully, this would be a very bitter, very negative, and very nihilistic space, no matter how wonderfully we sit together and how quietly we talk. We have to find what brings forth our love of what we love and then our expression of it. So thank you so much for that question. And I hope I was not coming out as just smashing that
No.
beauty.
Yeah, no, that was my thought, is that there will continue to be people who that's how they express their outrage, is
Yes.
by marching and sending around petitions and
Yes.
asking for funding and
Yes.
more power to them.
More power to them.
If they don't do that, then it doesn't keep getting raised in the public awareness
Yes.
of how bad things are. But I've thought for a while that it's a no-go. I mean, it hasn't been listened to for decades.
Yes.
Little increments of progress
Yeah.
that feel like concessions to keep people thinking that governments and corporations are doing something.
Yes.
And
Right.
so it anyway, I mean, okay. I could
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
Janet, thank you. Really deeply thank you. I know I can get on a roll and I can do that to the exclusion of a very important balance. And you brought that balance, and I thank you for that. I first have a question. If there's anyone who has a hard stop 2 minutes ago when we were supposed to be done, I'd like to check out consciously and take a few moments each consciously to do that. That may take us 10 minutes. If there's anyone who has to be, like off sooner than that, please let us know right now, and perhaps you could check out first. And if not, if the first person could choose themselves and step up and check out, and please include what you're landing with out of this time together today from any point within it that seems particularly prominent for you. And before we get too far with that, I just thank you all very much for we've covered a lot of ground from kind of difficult conversation to beautiful and easy conversation to everything in between. And so I would very much appreciate if we could check out in a way that lets us kind of sum it up for ourselves, for each other. And I'm going to close a door that's letting in very cold air from my dog. And I can hear you the whole time. So the person, please step up and check out.
Hmm.
Come here, bud.
I'm going to have to go, but thank you all for being here, and I hope that we will continue to do this work. And Richard, I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon. I'll be in touch. So thank you.
Good, thanks.
Mike.
See you, Mike. Take care.
Okay.
I'll go. I have a bit of a confession to make. And my confession is that I grieve more for the natural world that is going to go down with us and has no choice, no options, no nothing. As our civilization goes, we're taking it with us. And that I grieve that more than people, because people have some choice. And the skunk that tried to spray my dog doesn't have a choice. Like, he doesn't know to move, and where is he going to go? Um, and so I don't want this to feel for hurt any of you here or any other people that I don't care about people, but people have some choice, and we all have choice about what we're doing and how we live and how much we buy into the capitalistic consumeristic society that's feeding all everything. And there's lots of people who don't have hardly any choice. Like if you live in Africa and you barely have enough water and food to eat, you don't have choices. But I'm going to guess that most of the people listening to this have choice. Anyway, so that's me. It's not something I say because most people would be horrifically offended that I care about the trees more than them. But if when it comes right down to the core, that's I don't know. And maybe if I was faced with that, that could change. Because this is like a philosophy thing from not having had it, like Allison had it in her face. Watching her home destroyed and her community and environment. Anyway, so that's it for me.
Mm.
And I'm grieving, really deeply grieving where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Janet, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Well, I'm Melissa, and it's great to be able to talk about these things. I'm angry, um, but it's just it kind of is covering up the despair part. Um, I've like latched on to the evolution, the idea of how we've evolved to get here, as a way of stepping away from the emotional part. And, we've evolved to get here as humans by being very dominating and hierarchical, as a way we've, I mean, we're not totally like that. Obviously, there are plenty of people who don't do that. It's just that the ones who have been the most dominating have, we've dominated all the plants and animals now. And in fact, back in the 70s, the book Overshoot by William Catton really nailed it. And a few people listened to that, but nobody did anything. It was just so maddening. But um, anyway, where am I going with this? Um, it's comforting to know that what we're doing is what other animals do who dominate a territory, or the succession, it's called, who takes over from the dominant life forms in a particular ecosystem. Others take over because that's the way evolution goes. So we've taken over this ecosystem, but I'm afraid we're going to be going along with some of the, just like other species have done. So that makes me feel better, like I, go over and over with that thing. But if you get down, to where you're living, the level of having to, work with other people, and all of those things, I can only feel that way for so long. But that's why I'm here, to just talk about dealing with life with other people in general now. So anyway, that's hard. So that's enough. Thanks.
Melissa, thank you.
Well, I'll check out. Um, yeah, I mainly really value hearing everybody's perspectives and where everybody's at, what people are experiencing, and because it's such a crazy, sorry, such a crazy, overwhelming time. I think it's just real important to connect with each other and connect on a soul level, which our society is completely out of touch with, seems. And I find that deeply healing on a heart level, I guess, and on a soul level. And I guess what I'm coming away with today is, that feeling of shared connection and experience, and also just really feeling the grief and anger about just the insanity of our present course. I mean, my Lord, I think, well, we've already talked about it. I'll just say, yeah, I think traditional activism is kind of dead because it's not going to get anywhere at this point. We can go through the motions, but it's not going to have a whole lot of effect. So that's pretty sad, really. I mean, I'll continue with my writing. I'll continue being an activist in different ways, but it seems pretty uh, pointless in a way. But I'm going to keep doing it because I want to keep doing it.
Mm.
So
yeah.
that's that's it for me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's great.
Richard.
Richard,
Mm.
I'm
Yeah,
very
thank
pleased
you.
that you're not going to give up on your writing. I'm very, very inspired by your writing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Allison, are you ready?
Sure. Well, there's a lot. Um, I hear in this group acknowledgement of collective threat that we're all experiencing. I think it's really healthy to get it out and to talk about it and just instead of pretending everything's going to be okay.
Mm.
In the past, 10 days since the election, all my friends are like, well, in 2 years, we get to vote again. And that's utter insanity to employ that mindset. And
Mm.
I want to shake their necks. I want to wring, I want to scream.
Mm.
And so you can see the denial out there, but at least here I feel safe and I feel like I can say anything and it'll be heard. And we're really, I've been you don't know me, I'm a practicing psychic. I've been predicting for years about this convergence. So this is
Hmm.
the economy's going to crash, the climate's going to crash, politics are going to crash. I mean, we're on this trajectory. So um I feel like this is a big warm blanket we can all sit under, and hold a candle and be together and be there for each other like because we're rolling right into it. And it's it defies the sadness of it defies language. There isn't a language
Mm.
that's been created yet to adequately describe what this is. It's shocking to me that humanity has reached this, that collectively we're so stupid that, like, that saying about the dog, you don't shit where you sleep. I mean, so,
Yeah.
thank you for letting me join your group this late. And it might be helpful. And I just want to say, Dean, I don't know what your financial issue is, but I know that I can alleviate a little bit. I don't think it's going to matter soon. I mean, I don't want to like get out in front of my skis and try and heal your whatever it is, but I have some things you can call me to. So thank you everybody for letting me be here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Come back.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, Allison, thank you for your checkout. And I'm not sure what you mean, if there's a way to connect up and for me to hear any wisdom or insight or psychic emanation that you might be present to that I don't know about, I'd be thrilled. But thank you for your concern and I love the comment about it. It soon might not matter at all. Yeah, I
I
guess.
don't, yeah, it's not psychic. This has nothing to do with psychic. I think this is facts. Like what we're
Okay.
look I'll address that privately with you if you
Okay.
want.
I would love that. I would love that. So
Okay.
perhaps between now and next Saturday session, we could set up a time to be on Zoom together. That would be great.
I just feel so
Just,
grateful. Sorry.
just
Just
have
so
one,
grateful.
one logistical, a little logistical thing.
Yeah.
So the next meeting is not in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks, right?
Yes, I think so. I think you are right.
Yeah. I checked the calendar and the timing's a little weird this month, and so I think it's 3 weeks till the first one in December. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, I know I've had more than my share of airtime this session, and yet I'd like to just briefly check out, and I'm going to start that with just a pause. Um, I've trained with some psychics, some seers. I don't consider myself a full-on seer, or at least not the kind that they were. But I've seen these times since I was 15. And it's pieces of how soulless our culture has become that is most grievous to me. It's most heartbreaking.
Hmm. Yeah.
I um, it's hard for me today to like people, and I'm very, very thankful I have your faces on the screen to remind me of there's so much lovable and precious and even miraculous about people. Thank you for that, because it's the dark side today is hard. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to be
Yeah.
in the face of. Thank you for a remarkable session and for your patience with the malleability, the changeability, and the different faces of this work that you have the patience to. Some of it goes on behind the scenes, so you might not know that the changes of the various videos or articles and components for each time. But thank you so much for your presence and your participation and the realness. I don't know how to state the preciousness that it is for me. Thank you so much. So nourishing.
Thanks, Dean. Thank you.
Yes. For me too.
Yes, me too.
Um, Richard, I may just take you up on, I will send you an email about possibly setting up a Zoom call for you and me because you offered
Sure.
a little bit of space holding. And
Sure.
Allison,
Yep.
I will also send you an email and see if we can set up a time for me hearing what you were talking about with the items in our
Yeah.
world that we were talking about. And Janet, thank you so much for beautiful space holding today. Wow. 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 Thank you.
Yeah.
In any time. It feels like a gift to I don't it it's odd in one sense to say that it's a gift to hear someone else's trouble,
Mhm.
but it's real and it's honest, and yes. Yes.
Yep. Yes, for sure.
All right. Thank you all.
Blessings, everybody. Thank you.
Yes, you too.